Hello friends, Diana here, bringing another bullet journal setup to a computer near you. The theme for my April 2025 bullet journal setup is the Gothic. But which type of Gothic am I talking about? Medieval architecture, the Gothic bands from the 1980s, or Gothic novels from the 18th and 19th century? The answer is yes. All of the above. April is my birthday month and I've been planning a Gothic themed picnic to celebrate, and I thought I'd borrow that same theme for my bullet journal. I feel like I always put a bit more pressure on myself to do something different or more elaborate on my birthday month, and that ends up defeating the purpose of bullet journaling for me, which serves as a kind of art therapy / organizational tool. So instead of driving myself crazy, I decided to only use materials I could find at home. One of the primary visual elements I wanted to use in the setup is Gothic architecture. That means including old churches, stained glass windows, spires, that sort of thing. For this month's cover, I used my trusty compass to create this Gothic arch, which I think came out pretty realistic. And then I colored it in with my Tombow dual brush markers. I usually struggle to use these markers to color large areas because I find it challenging to create consistent thick lines, and the irregular brushstrokes end up bothering me. I felt like something was missing in the windows. I had originally thought to fill them in with dark shadows, but then I remembered I have this adorable roll of stained glass PET tape, and I decided to use it to create a stained glass window effect. This process was pretty painstaking. I first selected parts of the tape that looked like stained glass, then checked them for size to create a continuous pattern. I also had to cut the clear margins for every single piece of tape, and that took a long time. After I completed a pattern I was happy with, I carefully cut the tape into its final shape with a precision knife. I tried not to use too much pressure to avoid cutting through the notebook paper, but in hindsight, it would have been a better idea to create this illustration on a separate page and then glue it to the notebook. But I don't always know exactly what I'm going to do when I start journaling. I think part of the process is to experiment and let the setup dictate the design. On the right side of the spread, I used an alphabet stencil to write April in Gothic letters and called it a day. I began the calendar spread by attempting to continue the Gothic arch illustration theme, but I ended up hating the second design, so I covered it up with a scrap page from my old bullet journal and started over. This is a technique that I use a lot when I make bigger mistakes and I need to cover a large area. By the way, this is my tried and true calendar format. Each box measures 6 by 6 squares or 3 by 3 centimeters. I like this format because it gives me enough space to actually write appointments and important dates on my calendar, and I still have some leftover space for some notes. Bear in mind that I'm using a B5 size notebook, which is 190 millimeters wide and 250 millimeters tall, or about 7.5 inches wide by 9.8 inches tall. That is quite a bit larger than an A5 notebook, which is the most common notebook size out there. To decorate this page, I used my alphabet stamp to stamp the days of the week on top of the calendar. I wrote April in big Gothic letters using the same stencil as the cover to create a sense of unity and cohesion. I also glued in this spire, which I found in a souvenir booklet from Durham Cathedral. I bought this booklet at a vintage shop in Missouri when I was visiting my in-laws, and it has amazing illustrations of of this gothic cathedral, which was perfect for this spread. I also used images from this collector's sticker anthology from the Met Museum and some stickers that came in this mystical ephemera booklet, which is really cool. I've used it a lot. The dashboard spread is one of my favorites, and I believe it is a pretty unique design in the bullet journal world. At least I haven't seen anything quite like it. The left page usually stays the same, with a space for my 3 main goals of the month and a space for quick notes below. Every month I select my 3 main goals, and that helps me prioritize my tasks. I'm also guilty of overcommitting myself, so this goal session helps me feel a sense of accomplishment and progress by the end of the month. I came up with the spread because a lot of my work includes long and recurring tasks, and the bullet journal system asks you to repeat those tasks every day or every week to sort of imprint them in your brain, but I found that really repetitive and stressful. The left side of the page changes a little bit more. I create sessions based on the projects I need to work on each particular month. Here you can see that I divided those sessions in 4 parts. So next is my habit tracker spread. I really like how the spread came out aesthetically, but this is a spread that I have a love and hate relationship with. Some months I find it very useful to track my moods, my habits, and my productivity. Some other times I find that it's really difficult to track everything that I do because some of my tasks end up being sort of amorphous, and this page ends up becoming a big source of anxiety. The month is written on the horizontal, so this month starts on a Tuesday. For that reason, the first block is a little shorter, and I continue that way towards the end. Separating the month into weeks helps me visualize this tracker a little bit better. So the first thing I track is my mood, and I track it from 1 to 4. If my mood is a 4, I fill in the entire bar. If my mood is a 1, I only fill in the bottom square. So it looks more filled up if I had a better week and less filled up if I had a sadder or more stressful week. Below, we have a bar graph that relates to the work that I do. So I divide my work between writing, content creation, and other. Other is everything. The majority of the things I do is other. I just didn't want to create too many categories because it's already sort of tricky to use this graph. And I feel like this graph is really unfair with chores and home tasks, because when I'm sitting down to write or to edit a video, it's very easy for me to track that. I like to time block so I can clearly see what I've done in my calendar. However, if I'm running chores, if I'm washing the dishes here, if I'm, have a quick meeting with someone, all those things that fill up my day, it can be harder to track them. So I end up not being able to measure appropriately how much I've worked. And I think this problem is really common to a lot of people that work from home. I have access to a co-working space in Brooklyn, which I really like because I feel that when I'm there, I know that I'm working, and it's easier for me to create the separation. And they also have a beautiful patio, which I'm really enjoying now that the weather is getting nicer. This month, I've also decided to track the days in which I was working on my 2 book projects. So on the top, I have SSDC, which is the novel that I'm currently querying. SSDC stands for Same Side of Different Coins, which is the title of my novel. This month, I'm not going to work on it because I actually hired a professional editor, and she's going to start editing my book early next month. Next, I have Boras, which is my main secondary project. I always use this habit trackers that tracks my pills, breakfast, exercise, and outdoor. Sometimes because I work from home, I don't leave my apartment, and that affects my mental health. So I try really hard to have mental health walks, just staying at a coffee shop outside, especially now that the weather is so nice and the flowers are blooming and New York is so pretty. To decorate this page, I used a thermal printer that I have and printed the title of each graph in Old English black letters. I think it came out really nicely. Some things are hard to read, like YouTube, IG, but I know what they are, so it doesn't really bother me. Here on the bottom right corner, I have a sticker of the unicorn tapestry, which is also from my matte sticker book. If you don't know, the unicorn tapestry is on permanent exhibition at the Cloisters in New York. The Cloisters are part of the Metropolitan Museum, but they are in a different location. They are located north of Manhattan, almost at the Bronx, but it's pretty easy to get there. I haven't been there yet, but I've heard it's gorgeous, and my dad is coming to visit pretty soon, and I'm planning on taking him there. I have a tried and true style for my weekly spreads. I like to see my whole week in one view, so I like to keep everything on one opening. On the right page, I have my days of the week. I always divide this page in 6 parts because I usually don't need as much space for my weekly plans. I don't journal on this part of my notebook. I just keep appointments and to-dos in little notes. This spread works really well for me and it has for years. On the other page, I like to decorate the edges and I always add a mini calendar, but I like to leave most of this page open for any to-dos, for any little notations that I have, and sometimes I'll add a picture in a little note about something fun I did, but it varies from week to week. Sometimes this page is absolutely filled to the brim and I'll put extra sticky notes here with more things that I need to think about that week, and sometimes I don't write anything here, which is fine. I don't need to complete every single page of my bullet journal spread. This stamp is my favorite calendar stamp ever. I bought it on Etsy a while back and I'll see if I can find it and link it below because it's just the most intelligent thing. So it's a modular calendar and I can change the days around to form different calendars. For each weekly page, I added a Gothic A filled in different colors. I added the calendar and this little craft paper. This craft paper actually comes from a set of craft sticky notes. This library washi tape at the bottom is from the washi tape shop and I love it so much. I'm definitely buying a new roll when this one is over. It came in a kit and the kit was pretty cute, but this one was definitely my favorite. I've used it so much in so many spreads. I also added a little bird, I think a raven or crow. I can't identify what species it is, but I was thinking about the raven and Edgar Allan Poe. I also just finished reading Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, one of the prequels from the Hunger Games that tells the story of Haymitch, and I loved it so much. I'm not going to spoil the book, but if you read it, you'll know how important the raven is in that book, and I absolutely loved the little paratext. I also like to add some bugs, some butterflies, a black rose, very gothic, and the statue of the Three Graces, also from the Met Museum. Following the theme for my habit tracker, I use my thermal printer to print the days of the week in this gothic black letter. It came out pretty fun. I've never done that before and I thought it was really cool. Every week is sort of the same, but with different stickers. On the second page, I included an image of Susie from Susie and the Banshees, which is an icon of 1980s gothic music, and her makeup is so perfect. I also really like the photographs of her. They are so dramatic and her look fits with the makeup and hair so perfectly. I printed them with my mini thermal printer, so they're pretty pixelated, but I ended up liking the effect. Next page, I got some more stickers and the classic Joy Division poster for Unknown Pleasures, which is so quintessential 1980s gothic. Every gothic store ever is going to have a t-shirt with this print. I had to include that somewhere in my bullet journal. Last but not least, I have another image from the Durham Cathedral. They have a few pages in color and I just really love this alcove. You can also see that is a little tombstone. There's like a person lying down on top of a gothic sarcophagus. I really love the colors and all the shapes. They look pretty gothic, but there's also something that feels reminiscent of Islamic art to me. I don't know, it reminded me of those buildings in Spain that were built by the Moors there. So gorgeous. I included a stained glass image from my matte sticker book. Again, this was such a golden source of materials. It fits perfect with this theme, and I contrasted that with another image from Susie that looks incredible. I really love how the image of Susie and the stained glass work together. This last page is probably my favorite weekly spread, and I can't wait to use it. You know, sometimes I make a spread and I'm not super happy with it, but this month I'm super proud of what I accomplished with the materials I had at home. I'm very excited to use this spread on my birthday month. I feel like it represents so many sides of my personality. I love the 1980s Gothic aesthetic. I love the music. I also really love Gothic architecture, medieval tapestry, illustrations, and I'm proud of myself for making do with the materials that I have at home instead of going out and buying more things. Sometimes I finish a bullet journal spread and I'm not 100% happy with it, so I sort of struggle to pick up my bullet journal. But this month, I know that I'm going to use my bullet journal so much because I just want to see those beautiful pages and use them in making them even more beautiful when I add in content, pictures, more stickers, more text. Hopefully you enjoyed the spread as well. Maybe you've learned something new or felt inspired, and that is my ultimate goal.